At Midwest Horizons Real Estate Services, we believe that anybody can achieve the dream of homeownership. You just need this one thing, and that's what we're going to explain today. If you're new to the channel, my name is Tony Tiller. I'm a local realtor in the St. Louis and St. Charles, Missouri area, and we are dedicated to getting education to people. So that's why we created what we call My Homeownership Coach. We wanted to create a low pressure way, because a lot of times when you hear the word real estate agent, you just think of them trying to pressure you into home sales or trying to get you just to get to that end result of just doing a transaction. For us, we are passionate about getting education to people. So whether you might be 3 years and down the road to actually purchasing a home, or you're ready to go in the next 3 days, you have the education and the understanding to know how to proceed. So this video is part of a series of videos helping inexperienced and first-time home buyers on what does this journey look like. But once people begin to understand the process and what needs to be included in the steps systematically to take, that's when homeownership becomes a reality. And that's when this journey that seems really overwhelming, you begin to realize it's really not that overwhelming as long as you have the right people in the vehicle. This video is part of a series of videos where we're just explaining the entire process. And what we do is we look at it as a destination and a journey. Your destination is to get to the closing day where you are owning a home. It's your home, you've gone through the process, and you get to move in, you get the keys. The question is where are you at on the map? Now, here's what I mean by this. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. It's in the middle of the country, right in the center. If I wanted to go to Florida, I have the ability to go to Florida. Now, if I just start driving aimlessly along highways, I'm probably not going to get to my destination, right? I need to type in the destination of the beach into my GPS, and it's going to route the exact lines, the exact roads I need to take, the turns I need to make. It's going to tell me how long I'm going to be on certain highways to be able to get from St. Louis to Florida. And the cool thing about this too is anybody can get to Florida. If you are anywhere in the US, you're able to get to that end destination, the same location. A person in St. Louis is able to get to Florida in the same way that a person in New York is able to get to Florida. What's the difference? Their journeys just might look a little different. The end destination is the same, and anybody in the US is able to get to that end destination. The paths to get there just might be a little bit different. Some people might actually live in Florida and they have a much shorter path. Some people might live in California and they have a little bit longer path. But if they want to put the work in, they can get there. Our view is homeownership is the exact same way. So it's not that this is an overwhelming process. It's just you have to know, where are you on the map? Once you understand where are you at on the map, then you can know what's needed, what turns to take, what roads to drive down for how long to be able to get to your end destination, which is home ownership. So for us at Midwest Horizons Real Estate, we see ourselves as a GPS. We've driven this route before. We've helped people who literally live right close to their destination and are able to get into home ownership pretty quickly. And then we've helped people who are like, man, I need a lot of help, and their destination was further. And yeah, it did take a little bit more work. The journey was a little bit longer, but we were able to map out the path of, if you want to own a home, here's what you need to do, and help simplify that process that seems super overwhelming. So in this video, our whole goal is for you to understand, what does the map look like, and where are you at on the map, and what people do you need to get in the vehicle with you to help you get through this journey that ultimately ends in home ownership. This video in the series is just to give you a 50,000 foot view of what's included as we go through this journey. What do you need to be thinking about? Then in videos to come that we're going to be dropping on our channel, we're going to be talking about the specifics about each one of these areas. So if we look at this whole journey, usually if I was driving from St. Louis to Florida, there's going to be, which I've done before, there's going to be different highways you have to take. And you're going to be driving one highway maybe for 20 miles and then another highway for 200 miles. It's similar whenever you're talking about your journey to home ownership. There's some things that you stay on a little bit longer, and there's other things that take a little bit less time. And so we're going to be talking about all of those different highways that you have to take more in depth in the videos to follow. Today's video is simply the 50,000 foot view. It's kind of like if you take that GPS and you look at the whole map, whenever you first hit start and it maps it all out for you, you can't really see the highway specifically. You get a general picture. That's what we're going to give a placement for today. That's how we're viewing this video here, where you understand the big picture, and then in videos to follow, you can then understand the specific highways and how they play a part in the whole journey as a whole. So I would encourage you to like, subscribe if you find this stuff useful. We are also going to be doing blogs that are similar content on our website at MissouriHorizon.com. And even if you're not in Missouri, we want you to get educated. We can help you even find a local agent that is close to you. Just shoot us a comment, shoot us a DM. We'd be happy to help you with that. Okay, are you ready to jump in the car? So we know our end destination. We want home ownership. So let's figure out where we're at on the map and what all the highways look like to get where we want to go. If you're going on any road trip, the first thing that you have to have is a car. First thing I want you to do, comment down below, what is your favorite car? Now, I don't know about you, but I think road trips are a lot more fun when you've got people in the car with you. As we journey throughout this road trip, we're going to be picking up some people and placing them in the car because they play a role on you getting to your destination. The first person that you want to make sure is in the vehicle with you is your co-pilot. Your co-pilot is the one that's going to be reading you the navigation a lot of times, telling you what the GPS is saying, and they really act as your GPS, and that's your real estate agent. Your real estate agent is going to act as the GPS throughout the entire transaction, from the moment you start to the moment you get to your end destination. It's important that you pick an agent that you feel comfortable with because they're going to be guiding you through a lot of this process. They're going to be sitting right next to you in that co-pilot seat as you pick up people along the way and throw them in the vehicle as we head down towards our destination of home ownership. So if you don't have the cash to put down for a house, the first highway that you're going to have to travel down is getting a loan. Well, what does that look like? You're going to find out that whenever we go through this process, there's going to be a lot of people on this team that are going to help you get to that end destination. So the first person that we're going to get in the car with us is you've got you at the driver's seat. You've got your real estate agent in the passenger seat, and then in the back seat, we're going to have a loan officer. And it's a really fairly easy process. Now, the way that that's typically going to work when we get that loan officer in the back, the conversation that's going to be had is typically they're going to ask you to fill out an online application. This is called pre-qualification. This is just where they look at your income, your employment history, your credit, how much money you have in savings for a potential down payment, all of those types of things, basically just your financial position in general. And they'll see if they can qualify you for a home, and if they can, for how much. Now, you have the ability to get whatever person in on this team. You might have some connections with people. You might have banked at a local bank that you feel comfortable with, or maybe you're like, I don't know where to start. This is where you're going to look over to that co-pilot seat and ask your real estate agent, hey, do you have any relationships with people that you trust? And oftentimes they can give you the names of a couple loan officers who maybe they've worked with or they know have a good reputation, and they can help establish that relationship. Now, this is the part of the highway where a lot of people get stuck on. They might have gone through this process and the loan officer said, well, credit maybe needs to have a little bit of help, or you need to be there at your employment for a little bit longer, or whatever the things may be. And a lot of people can view that as the car just broke down and there's no way to get it fixed. It's going to be stuck on this side of the road forever. And that's just not the case. Again, some people might be a little bit further in their journey and might take a little bit longer, but that doesn't mean you can't get there. This is the point in the conversation where we bring in that loan officer and say, okay, maybe we can't fully get approved right now, but let's create a plan together with the loan officer and the real estate agent and say, what would it look like for me to be able to get pre-qualified? And we can build a strategy for what the rest of that highway looks like. Now, it might take a few months, it might take whatever, but if you really want to get to that end destination, it's worth putting in the time to get to the point where you can qualify for that loan. So let's say the conversation goes really well and they say, hey, we can qualify you for a loan. Here's the amount that you're going to be able to qualify for. Here's your monthly payments. That's the first highway. That's the first checkpoint. And now we can take an exit and go into the next highway. Now, before we jump on off that exit into the next highway, again, this is a 50,000 foot view. So in the next videos, we are going to talk about that pre-qualification in a lot more detail. But for this one, we're just trying to get an understanding of what the highways are and when we can exit. So let's say that we get our pre-qualification and now we're looking to exit into the next step. That's super great news, right? Our next step, we're going to go back to our realtor, and this is the point where you need to really establish your relationship with your realtor. Now, usually they're going to do that with something called a buyer's agreement, and this is going to determine how your realtor gets paid, how long you're going to be in a relationship with that realtor, because the realtor has a really important role to make sure all of this stuff stays on track. And we want to make sure that there's an agreement on how that's going to happen, that everybody knows on the front end, how's the realtor going to get paid? What is the realtor's roles and responsibilities? You want all of that really agreed upon. Even how do we get out of this relationship if we get halfway down the road and realize, I don't know if this is the right fit, because that's a potential of things that can happen too. But once you get that pre-qualification and you can exit, and then you have that relationship established with your realtor, then the fun starts to happen. Now, this is where most people start. They start to jump on Zillow or Realtor.com or all of these different sites, and they start looking at houses and they don't even have a pre-qualification yet. This is the time whenever you should probably start to look for houses. Your realtor is going to work a plan with you, and the next highway is going to be, let's find that perfect home. So on this highway, the conversation that's going to happen with the realtor that's sitting in the co-pilot seat is, hey, what area do you want to be in? We know how much you can afford because we have a pre-qualification. So they'll be able to adjust their home search around what makes sense. What do you want in a house? Do you want a ranch? Do you want a 2-story? Do you want to walk out? What does all of these items look like? Is there a specific school district that you want to be in? These are all questions that you're going to begin to ask your realtor, and then your realtor will be searching for homes. I'm sure that you'll also be having all the apps of Zillow and Realtor.com or whatever your realtor, some realtors have where their website's built in to be able to do these searches as well. You'll be able to start searching for these homes and go on showings. That means your realtor is literally opening the doors and allowing you to view homes to potentially make an offer on one of those homes. Now, here's some really important things to note about what that looks like. Realtors aren't able just to show homes to anybody. Most of the time, whenever we're looking at homes, there's people still living in those homes, and we don't want to waste their time. So we want to make sure there's a couple things in place before you're able to start looking at homes and actually viewing on the inside. You have to have that pre-qualification letter, and you need to have that buyer's agreement with your realtor set up and established. So that way, when you're viewing homes, if you're like, man, I want to write an offer on this one, then you are able to do that and there's nothing standing in your way. So before you start to go look at homes or start allowing your realtor to start showing you homes, those things have to be in play. Just like if I'm driving from St. Louis and I'm trying to get to Florida, I can't start in St. Louis and then jump to 3 highways kind of on the route. I have to go the right way, highway by highway. So you start with your lender, you get the pre-qualification, then you exit into actually starting to establish a relationship with your realtor and start looking at homes. Now, one thing to note, you can establish the relationship with your realtor and that process even before you get the pre-qualification. Pre-qualification doesn't necessarily have to come first. It actually would probably make most sense if you have the realtor in play beforehand. But what is important before you start looking at homes or writing a contract on a home, you have to have that established relationship with a real estate agent. Okay, so in our destination, we've left St. Louis. We're trying to get to Florida as our end goal, as our end destination. The first highway that we've gone through is we've got our pre-qualification. We've got an established relationship with a lender. Everything's good there. Our next exit is we want to make sure we have an established relationship with a real estate agent. And now we're going to start looking at homes. So let's say that you and your agent have been looking at a few homes, and then you found one that you and your family love, and you're ready to write an offer. Now, this is really important when it comes to writing an offer. You can't just write an offer on several houses. If you are writing an offer, this is an established contract that once you sign it and once the seller signs it, you are legally obligated to purchase that home unless there's some outs that you can legally take that will be set up on that contract that you need to discuss with your agent. And these are, again, those will be things that we go in depth on in future videos, so make sure to like and subscribe. But now we found the home and we said this is the one that we want to try to make an offer for. Now, It depends on what kind of home you're purchasing, because if it's a really high demand home, there might be several offers on that home, and you need to work with your real estate agent. And this is where they come into play to really lean on their expertise on how can we position ourselves to write the best offer. Because just because you're presenting an offer doesn't mean the seller has to accept it. They can say, no, we don't like these terms, or they can send a counter offer. You cannot write an offer if you don't have a pre-qualification letter, or if you don't have an established relationship with a real estate agent. So once you find a home that you love, you're going to take the next exit and write an offer. So you and your agent will determine the strategy around what you want to do in terms of the offer, what kind of terms to include, what kind of contingencies that may be specific to your relationship. And if contingency is a big word and we're not sure what that means, we're going to cover that in future videos, so make sure to stick around. Then we'll submit the offer to the seller's agent. Once you submit the offer, usually there's going to be some sort of time frame of when that offer needs to be accepted by. So 48 hours, 24 hours, whatever you and your agent feel comfortable strategically offering for that seller. And then you wait, which can be a little bit frustrating. The seller's agent will present that offer to the seller, and a couple things can happen. They can just flat out reject it and say, no, we're not going to accept that. They can accept it, and then once they sign it, you're officially under contract to purchase that house. Or they can counter it, which means we like some terms, but we don't like others, or we'll accept it if you change these things, essentially. Then your agent will review that with you, and you can decide to do the same thing. You can walk away. You can decide to accept it with the new terms, or you can present another counter offer, and you'll go back and forth until either everybody walks away, or you guys decide to land on certain terms and everybody signs on those terms. Once everybody signs either the offer or the counter offers that are presented, then you're officially under contract, and you've taken the next exit off into the next highway of being under contract for this home. Now, once you're under contract, we're going to throw some more people in the vehicle. Now, the next people that we're going to throw in the vehicle are inspectors, underwriters, appraisers, the title company, and an insurance person. So let's briefly talk about what happens when you go under contract. When you go under contract, there's going to be certain checkpoints that happen that you as the buyer need to walk through. And when you're under contract, you're going to have a certain time frame to make sure all these checkpoints happen. If you miss those time frames, you can't go back. And this is where your real estate agent plays a vital role to make sure that those checkpoints happen in a timely manner. So what happens on this highway? Again, we threw a lot of people in the vehicle here, right? First thing that's going to happen is we're going to involve the title company. The title company are going to be the ones that basically just help manage the transaction to make sure the home is actually has no liens, that money that is transferred between the seller and the buyer, all of the closing costs, all of those things, that they are managed appropriately. Title will also make sure that all utility bills are prorated, and there's a variety of things that they'll do that, again, we'll talk about in future videos. The next people that you'll have is your inspectors. So the first thing that happens when you go under contract is typically, unless you change the terms of the contract, which for certain scenarios might make sense, but typically you'll have an inspection period where you can do any inspections you want, general home inspection, radon, sewer laterals, termite inspections, your grandpa coming in. You can have anybody inspect the home to see if there's anything on the underneath the surface that we miss. For example, everything in the home might look great, but then the inspector says, we get in there and we dug deeper and we saw that there's some termite damage. Once you do all of your inspections, then you can officially submit what's called an inspection notice that basically says, hey, our inspections found these things. Now we want you to do X, Y, and Z. Now you might say we don't want you to do anything, or you might also say, hey, we want you to fix these things. You might ask for a credit where you ask for a reduction in the price of the home. There's a variety of things that you can do, and this is where your real estate agent becomes a critical role to help you strategize that. After you submit that inspection notice, that inspection window closes, which means you can't do any more inspections. Now you've entered an inspection negotiation period, which basically means based on what we found in the inspections, now we want to negotiate what we want. And in the same way, kind of like when you wrote an offer and you went back and forth, you can counter, they can counter, etc. You're going to do the same thing, and you have a certain amount of time that's laid out in the contract that you initially sent when you submitted your offer of how long you can do that. Now, again, this is big picture, so we're not going to go into the depths of that yet, but we will in future videos. Once you guys land on terms as to what happened from the inspection and what you want to go and what you want to do, and you, the seller and the buyer, both agree to what that looks like, the next thing that's going to happen, people that we have in the vehicle. So we've talked to the inspector, we've got title, having conversations with title. The next thing that's going to happen is there's going to be an appraiser. Now, your loan officer who's providing your mortgage will order the appraisal. And basically what an appraisal is that's just a person that comes in to determine the value of the home. For example, a mortgage company is lending you money, right? They want to make sure that what they're lending on is actually worth the money they're giving you. They don't want to give you $500,000 if the home is only worth $300,000, because let's say something happens and you can't make the payments, they're going to take that home back so they can try to recoup their money. They don't want to find out later that, man, we lent $500,000 on this and it's only worth $300,000 and they lose money. So they're going to make sure that it appraises for what you're trying to spend on it. Now, let's say that there's a scenario where you are purchasing a home for $350,000. You're under contract, and then the appraisal says, hey, this thing's only worth $325,000. Well, you have a couple options. You can try to bring the cash difference if you want to continue. You can present that to the seller and say, hey, your home didn't appraise for what it should have. Can you reduce it to what it did appraise to, what it appraised for? And sometimes there's a variety of other options. And again, this is going to be where it's very important that your real estate agent stays in that co-pilot seat to help you navigate all of these different things and obstacles that could potentially come up. So if you have a situation where your home didn't appraise for what you're trying to buy it for, that's where you and your agent will begin to get into an in-depth conversation of what your options are. This is why your real estate agent the whole time will act like a GPS to ensure everything stays on track. And if there's bumps in the road, they help you navigate those in a way that fully protects you. The fourth person in the vehicle that you're going to have is people called underwriting. Now, underwriting works with your loan officer. Now, when you first got on that first highway and you got a pre-qualification, you're going to submit general information about your income, your savings, etc. But they didn't really ask you to deeply verify all of that. Underwriting is going to begin walking you through a process of asking you to verify the things that you submitted on your pre-qualification application. So they're going to ask for income statements like W-2 or pay stubs. They're going to probably ask for bank statements. It's really important during this time that the financial snapshot you gave whenever you submitted your pre-qualification doesn't change. For example, if you didn't have a car payment when you got pre-qualified, but then you got under contract and now you go and purchase a car, that extra car payment can make it to where you could not qualify for a loan anymore. And underwriting is going to be the ones that are watching all of that to make sure that nothing changes from when you submitted an application to whenever you're actually purchasing the home. So sometimes it can feel like a really overwhelming process because they might ask for a lot of information and sometimes the same information throughout the time you get from under contract to close. But they're just people in the vehicle that you're having a conversation with as you're taking this road trip to the destination of homeownership, and they're just verifying that nothing has changed in your financial position. The last people that are going to be in the vehicle with you, and yeah, I guess we have a 12-passenger van at this point because there is definitely more than just a small car, is going to be home insurance. You want to make sure you have a conversation with a qualified home insurance person because you want to make sure that your home can be insured and that there won't be any issues and that you understand the costs around that as well, because that is another cost that you'll be incurring on top of your monthly mortgage payment. Again, if you don't know any good home insurance agents, talk to your real estate agent. Usually, your real estate agent will have a great established relationship with all of these types of people that are in the vehicle with us. So if you don't know somebody, I'm sure they would be happy to connect you with someone. The other thing that's important on the insurance piece is there's actually a part in the contract where you have a certain time frame to make sure that the home is able to be insured. And if it's not, for you to be able to leave the contract based on that inability for the home to be insured. So you want to establish this relationship pretty early on to make sure that you can send that your insurance agent, hey, this is the house that we're looking to get under contract. Can you tell me how much it's going to be? Make sure that it's actually insurable because that's why you want to have them in this conversation. Now, believe it or not, this sounds a little bit overwhelming, but we're pretty close to our actual final destination of home ownership. So once we have all of this stuff established, we're going to take the exit. Once we get through inspections, once we get through appraisals, once we know the home is able to be insured and it's not going to be a crazy amount, once we have title in play and they're checking to make sure that there's no liens or anything against the house, once all of those things are checked out, then we're going to take the exit and get to close day. Closing day is when you actually sign the papers, and you begin to be the new owner. Now, a couple days before, there's going to be some things that happen. Pretty much everything about a week prior to closing day. Now, sometimes this can adjust depending on certain situations, but usually about a week prior before closing day, appraisals should have already happened and cleared. Inspections should have already been cleared. Title should have already checked to make sure there's no liens and doing their due diligence around the home. The underwriter should have done their full job in terms of making sure that they feel comfortable with your financial position. And then we're going to get to close day. Now, there's going to be a couple things that happen right before close day that are smaller in scope of what you're doing, but are very important. One, title should send you a detailed list of everywhere where the money's going. You want to make sure to review that to make sure that's all accurate. This is going to include things like, again, how much the agents are getting paid, who's paying them, if there's any utilities that need to be prorated, who's paying what portions. That's the same thing for taxes, your closing costs, the down payment that's required from you. All of those things, those should be sent to you a few days before closing so you can review them and make sure there's no issues there. One thing to note, everybody involved in this process is human. And while, yes, we are all professionals, sometimes errors can come up and it's good to review those things. The second thing that's going to happen is you and your agent should do what's called a final walkthrough of the home. And this is just where you go a couple days or the night before closing to ensure that the home is in the same condition that it was whenever you originally saw it, that nothing's changed in the home, that there's no leaking pipes or things that maybe you asked to be included, like maybe you asked for the refrigerator or the washer and dryer to stay to make sure that those items are there. Or on the other hand, to make sure that the sellers actually took all of the items out and that the home is fully empty. If something comes up where something has changed and there's something that you need to alert the sellers to in terms of what you found during the final walkthrough around any of those things that we talked about, then your agent will know how to handle that and navigate that, again, in a way that you understand your options, in a way that protects you. This is why it's so important to have a real estate agent involved in this whole transaction, because there's probably going to be obstacles that come up, and they have the ability to help you understand what your options are, how to keep you protected through those, and also how to just navigate this whole journey. We're approaching our exit when it comes to being on the under contract highway. And this exit just isn't any exit to another highway. This exit is where it says, welcome to Florida. We've got to closing day. We've got to our destination. On closing day, they're going to have a bunch of papers for you to sign around the title, how it's transferring to you, all of the information in terms of where money is going as far as prorations for utility, etc. Your mortgage company will have all of their documents to sign. Usually closing takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. They'll explain all of the paperwork to you. And once you sign, and once the seller signs, and then your funds transfer to the seller's account, now you've reached your destination of home ownership. You're in Florida. You've got the keys. You've made it. In the next videos that we're going to be doing as part of the My Homeownership Coach series is we're going to be taking these highways and these things that we talked about at a 50,000 foot view, and we're going to really deep dive into the details of each one. While we did cover the generals, there are some details and nuances that you need to understand in each one of these parts of the destination for you to feel comfortable about this whole journey in general. Our goal here at Midwest Horizons Real Estate Services is for you to fully understand the process, because then the journey that feels really overwhelming could actually become pretty enjoyable. And not only that, you'll end at your destination of home ownership. Anybody has the ability to purchase a home. You just have to understand what the destination is and where you are at on the map, and then get people in the vehicle that will help you get from where you are to where you want to be. If you are in the St. Louis, St. Charles area and you would like help designing your specific roadmap, reach out to us. My name's Tony Tiller, and my contact information will be in the comments. In our next videos, we're going to be diving deep into each part of these specific highways to really understand the details. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow along.